Hello, dear all. Welcome to the second part of this unit. We have been discussing in the last session about the extended family, and we are going now to continue our discussion. Today, we are going to start by discussing about the type of families in which some members dominate others. In many cases, although not in all the cases, it is the men who dominate the women, who have very little role to play in the family decisions and in the family major activities. Additionally, the weaker members in such families are under physical or psychological pressure that cause them frustration and making it very difficult for them to grow intellectually, to grow spiritually. There are a number of instruments of power that are used by the dominating members in such families. Here we are going to consider 4 such instruments of power. For example, one is money. Second is physical force. Third is a stronger character of one member in comparison to the weakness of some other members. And also a wrong understanding of authority. You should now discuss with your learning partner how these 4 instruments of power are used in different families. What should you do if these instruments are used against you or against another member in your family? But please remember before you discuss, not to discuss any real family, because it would become backbiting and gossiping, which is of course against your moral development. You would not like to do that. Second precaution that you should take is that when you discuss these cases, you should avoid 2 pitfalls. One is exaggeration, meaning to blow up something out of proportion, making big something small. For example, to say that the whole town hears the cry of the wife when there is domestic violence at home. That is, of course, not possible, So don't exaggerate out of proportion. Secondly, avoid unjustified generalization, which means to expand one view to include, without sufficient reason, many other similar people or situations. For example, to say that all the boys belonging to a particular locality are troublemakers. Well, this may be very much unjustified generalization against all those boys. So, to avoid these 2 pitfalls, you should remember that you are not discussing about monsters. Rather, you are discussing about the real people who mostly have basic decency of a human being. Therefore, you should avoid going to extremes. In fact, extreme cases are very rare, maybe existing, but very rare. And discussing them will not give you the necessary insight into real general family situations. There is another category of families which we need to discuss, and that is the kind of families that are characterized by permissiveness and complacency. Well, this terminology permissiveness may be new to some of us, so we'll explain it a little bit. Now, the families in which there is permissive parenting, the permissive situation, prevails. So, permissive family, as I said, is because of the permissive parenting style, is the style where parents permit their child or their children to do whatever they want to do. It's when a parent is highly open. That means quick to show love, but does not want anything from the child. You can see the problem, right? They are loving, kind, and nurturing, but are excessively kind and understanding. And because of that, they spoil their children to an extreme extent. Permissive parents view themselves more as of a friend than a parent. Therefore, children are not forced to have mature behavior. Instead of guiding the children and setting rules and restrictions for them to follow, they allowed the children to figure out for themselves. They don't discipline their children and expect little of them. Similarly, if their children perform poorly socially or in school, it is always the fault of other people. Now, here, let me give you some examples of permissive parents, what they do to their children. For example, allowing your child to watch TV even though you said that they are only allowed once they finish their assignments. Secondly, to let the children to do the household chores whenever they feel like doing it, and you don't scold them, you don't ask them when they postpone doing it or they forget to do it. A third example is giving them what they want just because they are crying. Or some don't want to be permissive but are forced to do so because of certain circumstances. Well, many of you, dear learners, may not be parents yet, but it's good to know that by being permissive, you're destroying in some ways the character of your children. So, what are the effects of permissive parenting? First, lack of self-discipline and self-regulation, as they are not used to rules and to disciplines. Secondly, there is even lack of self-esteem in the children, feeling of entitlement to everything so they can get whatever they want, being irresponsible and uncontrollable and unaccountable, and there is lack of boundaries for them because there are no rules. So, as discussed earlier, in such families, most of the members are concerned with satisfying their own personal needs and wishes. Although they seem to talk about love very often, it's not a true love. It's a negotiable commodity that can be proved only through fulfilling everyone's desires. If you love me, then you should do it. If you love me, you should buy for me. If you love me, you have to permit me. See how love will be negotiated? Now, to understand such families better, discuss some of the attitudes and beliefs according to the permissive thought. For example, discuss with your co-learner the meaning of freedom in such families. What do they understand by freedom? What does love mean? What does happiness mean? What about purpose of life? Difficult questions, I know. Again, what are the attitudes about being disciplined or about sacrificing for one another? What is the attitude about unity? Or what reason do parents give in fulfilling the wishes and dreams and demands of their children? Do they give some reason? What is that they say? So discuss and write a few sentences that you hear being exchanged among the members of permissive family. What do they talk about? How do they talk to each other? Now, before we end this part of the Unit 2, I'd like to mention that there are other types of parenting. If you like, you can study about them. For example, there is authoritarian parenting, or there is authoritative parenting, or there is uninvolved parenting. I think it's good to learn to know so that we can avoid going to extremes, and we can also understand our own self better first, the reason behind some of our behaviors, and if we live in a family that is suffering because of this kind of parenting or environment, then maybe we can take some steps to correct it. Thank you very much.